So ESG, right? This has been around since kind of the early 2000s. I think the UN actually gave it that acronym for environmental, social, and governance back in 2004. Early adopters of this were really the Europeans. All the big sovereign wealth funds, et cetera, really took that on early, and now it's got more of a groundswell after 20 years of it being out there in the field. So the question is, how do you align this with your investment goals? The real answer is, what are your goals? Are your goals more of the about environment and pollution and climate change and how companies are run? Is that more important, or is it returns? And we can get into more of that detail in a bit. But it's possible to do, and you can align your portfolio with what your beliefs or your ethics are. And there's a number of ways to do that.
So what do you think, and I that I come from the technology side. And so about not even 10 years ago, we saw a bit of an uptick in software companies that developed with this whole ESG messaging. What do you think is the driving force behind this enthusiasm around ESG?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Yes, there are all kinds of tools that can be used now that can score and really, pretty accurately score all of those factors, your social factor, your governance factor, your environmental factor, and roll that up and do screens on it. And a lot of it's very interesting. What is the swell behind all of this? I think it's like everything else. We're just much more aware of it. We as the folks in the United States, and certainly Europe ahead of us, just much more aware of these issues. They're more talked about. It is front of mind. We're having political debates about this stuff, which we didn't really have 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of coming to the top of everyone's mind now.
So what I think is fascinating is, social demographics, right? We have, there's ways to define a category of individuals, Generation X, Millennial generation, et cetera. And most people think that's actually just a time box, right? Most people think it's like a 20-year segment or 23, whatever that number comes out to being. But social demographers, or those that study demographics, are saying, no. It's actually not time box. It's event boxed. There are certain events that people experience that categorize them into Gen X, for instance. And why I think there's been this pickup in ESG is because the new modern investors, millennials in particular, but also Gen X, experienced things in their lifetime that have driven them to this ESG mindset. One of which being the corporate Enron scandals.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I remember
and
when.
watching their parents suffer with stocks blowing up and people's lives being devastated financially, which in turn vilified corporations.
Yep.
And I think that flight we're seeing to this ESG mindset is actually driven by the experiences they had as children.
Oh, I think that's very so. When you watch, your parents' 401k go to nothing, that's going to scar you. When you see accidents happen, companies that have, maybe not spent the time or the effort on their, whether it's pollution control or spend enough time on their board and their board makeup. When you see, you think about the pay scale differential, this one gets people really frosted, and that's when you have the CEO making $100 million and the average worker making 50 or 70 or whatever. That is enormous, and that hits and really punches Gen X and millennials really in the gut. I have two 23-year-olds, and they ask me why. How is that fair? And I don't really have a great answer for it.